One of the most common questions I get of all of the questions, it sounds simple on the surface. It's actually one of the most misunderstood questions in the entire space of e-commerce. How much does it really cost to start an Amazon business? And the honest answer is, it depends. It depends on how you're starting, which model you're choosing, what kind of outcome you're expecting. Most people that ask that question, they just want a single number. $500, $5,000, $50,000, $100,000. Amazon doesn't work like that. No business works like that. When people treat it like it does, that's where things start going sideways. See, instead of throwing out just a flat number, here's this headline, let's walk through this like a real business and have an actual business conversation, because that's what this is. It's a real business. So let's start with the true baseline. Everybody, at a minimum, every seller needs an Amazon professional seller account. Now that's roughly $40 per month. That part is non-negotiable. That goes straight to Amazon. If you want professional level access, that's the cost to play the game. And from there, most people immediately underestimate everything else. Now, first category, we're gonna look at software, okay? To operate even semi-competitively, you need tools, product research, pricing and repricing, inventory tracking, accounting or bookkeeping, analytics, sometimes compliance or reimbursement tools as well. Now, could you do all of this manually, like in some Google sheet? Technically, yeah. Would I recommend it? Absolutely not. Not if you value your sanity or your time or your accuracy. See, even running lean, most sellers spend between $200 and $300 per month in software alone. Now, that's not luxury tools. That's the basic operational visibility. This is where a lot of beginners already get off track. They hear Amazon automation, Amazon business, and they think inventory and profit. But you're operating inside of a massive rules-based ecosystem. And if you don't have good data, you're flying blind. So it's not gonna work. Then comes inventory. And this is where expectations and reality, we just go like this, start to separate. And if you're doing retail or online arbitrage, you can technically start with very little upfront. You source discounted product and then you send them into Amazon and you flip them. For some people, that's a valid way to learn the platform. But what you're really doing is you're trading capital requirements for time requirement. Very limited scalability. You're sourcing manually. Availability fluctuates. You're always chasing the next product or the discounted product or Marshalls or whatever. Margins shrink quickly. Competition shows up. And so yeah, lower upfront costs, but higher ongoing efforts and super lack of predictability. Once you move into the wholesale or private label, the financial picture changes. Okay, suppliers have what they call MOQs, minimum order quantity. Sometimes a few $1,000s, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes significantly more. And that's just the cost of goods. On top of that, you have inbound shipping, you have prep and labeling, Amazon fulfillment fees, storage fees, and referral fees. And if you're importing, then we're dealing with tariffs and customs and freight forwarding and longer cash flow cycles. And if you don't have your own warehouse, which most people don't, you're paying a prep center or you're hiring labor, and that cost is rarely highlighted, in the marketing when they talk about it. But it adds up incredibly fast. Now, there's another cost that doesn't get talked about enough as well: approvals and access. Getting approved to sell certain brands or categories are not automatic, not just with the vendors, but with Amazon. It often comes down to documentation, invoices, supplier relationships, persistence. Some sellers spend weeks, months, or longer to unlock access to profitable categories. Now, during that time, you're not just spending money, you're spending time, and there's opportunity costs that you're losing out on, which brings you to one of the most overlooked costs in the entire discussion: time. What's your time worth? Learning the platform, understanding compliance, reading policy updates, managing your account health, fixing mistakes, appealing warnings. That learning curve is so real. And for some people, it's a worthwhile investment. They want to understand, and I want to know every single lever, and they want to build the platform from the ground up. And that's fine if you go in with your eyes wide open. But for others, time becomes the bottleneck. You know, you're capable and disciplined and maybe have the capital, but you don't have the bandwidth to spend 6 to 12 months learning Amazon by trial and error. That's why a managed Amazon model exists. Not because people are lazy and not because they want magic money, right? It's because they understand leverage and system. Instead of each person reinventing the wheel every single time, you get structured teams that handle sourcing, compliance, operations, optimizations, ideally using systems that have already been in place. And you know, there's an important distinction. You're not paying to avoid work, you're paying to avoid inefficient learning and to try and build it on your own. And that difference, it does matter. You know, Amazon can be built lean, but it can also be built professionally. The danger is assuming that the lean version automatically means you're saving money or that it's going to mature into the professional one. Unless it's designed that way from day one and you have the structure and the capital to build it, the whole I'll figure it out as I go, you know, sometimes that works. More often it leads to patchwork systems, like a real fragile supplier relationship and avoidable compliance issues. Those issues are expensive. And not just financially, it does cost time and it screws with your emotions when things don't work. So let's kind of zoom out, look at it from a macro perspective. And when people ask, how much does Amazon cost to start? What they're really asking is, what's the cheapest way in? And that's typically not the right question. A better question is going to be, what does it cost to build something that can generate cash flow, that can survive normal business problems? Because problems on Amazon are normal, right? Listings get suspended, suppliers go out of stock, fees are charged, competition increases, policies change and they get updated. Businesses that are the ones that are designed to handle those ups and downs and those realities, those businesses last. So when you think about cost, think in layers. There's the visible cost, you know, account, software, inventory, prep, fees. There's the operational costs, which are systems and processes and people and compliance. There's the opportunity cost. How long is it going to take to reach stability? And what do you give up along the way? For some people, spending less money and more time makes sense. Others, spending more front to compress the system to get rid of the learning curve is rational. Neither path is automatically right or wrong. You need to look at where you're at. What's dangerous is pretending that they're the same thing, okay? So the real cost of Amazon isn't just what is this upfront headline number. It's the decisions and decisions about structure and decisions about risk and decisions about how much you want to make and what your responsibility is going to be and how much you want to carry on your own. And the earlier those decisions are made intentionally, the fewer expensive corrections you'll need later. So if you're evaluating Amazon, do it yourself versus manage, don't just ask how little you can spend to start. How you want to build it, what you want to accomplish, what you want the business to look like, the functionality, and how it's going to function under pressure, because that's where, you know, time will tell you far more about the true cost than any basic number ever will. So if all of those costs, both real, inherent, and others come into play and you're unsure and you want something done right, or you have further questions of what a managed model would actually look like by someone that's doing it and has been doing it for years, then yeah, click our link below, check out our website, and let us know.